Okay, let's start off here. I want to talk about all the stuff that went on in LA, okay? And this was the ICE, the ICE protests in Los Angeles, which turned into, just a disaster in terms of the way it was handled, the way it was planned. Like, it's great that you see those protesters out there, arguing for the freedom for immigrants to be able to travel in America. They're fighting against the deportation, where some of these guys are getting rounded up at work sites or, going to court, to get their immigration paperwork organized, and ICE is there to raid them. It's funny how they call them freeloaders, but a lot of times they're rounding them up at job sites, which is insane. So I'm right there. My heart is in the right place there with the protesters. But the reaction to all of this has got so blown out of proportion, so many distortions and lies. Going from the protesters going beyond what they really should have been doing. They were causing destruction, lighting Waymo cars on fire. There was conflicts with the police. There were people that were trying to block traffic on the freeway and on the roads. And we're going to talk specifically about that. But at the same time, you had Trump that was escalating the thing, sending out the National Guard, sending out the Marines. Oh my God, you're sending out, our military who are trained to kill, and you're sending them in to do crowd control. And this was all happening just like in downtown LA in a kind of a tiny little spot in LA, but it was covered wall to wall by the international media. And of course, Trump blows it up, says, oh yeah, LA's on fire. And, Newsom and what's the mayor's name in LA? Bass, they're incompetent. And, it just turned into a fiasco. But I do want to talk about one specific thing. And I think this is an important thing. And it's an angle we don't talk about enough when it comes to these protests. Now, I think one of the things that makes America great is that we have a First Amendment where people can have the right of assembly. They can go out there and protest, where if you did this in other foreign countries, you would be arrested. You would be sent to the gulag. You would be sent to Siberia, or to, to a prisoner of war camp or something in some of these other countries. Stalag 13 is what I was trying to think of. But in America, we can protest, and we have the freedom to do that as long as we're not harming other people, right? And this is where it gets out of line. Maybe you've seen some of the video footage of people blocking the streets, blocking the freeways. Okay, and I'm specifically talking about cases where protesters are blocking regular people's ability to drive their car on the street. People that are, somewhat, let's just say, neutral on the issue. They just need to go to work. They just need to go pick up their kid at school. They just need to go visit their mom or dad. They got an errand to run. These are people that aren't in the protests. They're not for the illegal immigrants. They're not on Trump's side either. They just need to get somewhere. And yet these people are blocking their cars. And it's interesting because the reaction from my left-wing friends and right-wing friends is so different. My left-wing friends will say, oh, it's just an inconvenience. I mean, it's no big deal. Just deal with it. It's not that big of a problem. I think, well, no way, man. This is a legit problem that you're impeding the right of other people to freely travel. Now, my right-wing friends are saying, yeah, well, hell yeah, man, we should just be able to run them over, and they just want to, escalate the violence. And I'm thinking neither one of these sides is thinking rationally about this. It does seem weird, though, doesn't it? I mean, you have anti-ICE protesters who, like I said, my heart and their heart are aligned, but some people don't have the right philosophical framework. So there are people that are out there fighting for the rights of illegal immigrants not to be rounded up by ICE. In other words, fighting for the right of individuals to live freely, to travel freely, to be able to work freely. And yet these anti-ICE protesters were blocking the freedom of regular people from being able to travel freely. And I just think that is just outright hypocrisy. This is the thing that we lose sight of, is that, we go out there, we're fighting for rights. We're fighting for the rights of women. We're fighting for the rights of illegal aliens. We're fighting for the rights of whomever group you want to focus on. But it's important to understand that everybody else has those same rights. So while we're fighting for liberty and freedom for illegal immigrants, let's say, we should be fighting for the same freedom and liberty and pursuit of happiness for all people in America. So blocking a street, blocking cars is wrong. It's immoral. It undermines your cause. It pisses people off. And it's just self-defeating. It's just really dumb. What we need to have is law enforcement. This is where law enforcement needs to play a role, is they need to control the crowd. If they're going to be at a public park or at the steps of the city hall, which is generally a public area, then fine. If they want to block the roads and, they got permission to do that, for a parade or something, okay, then that's separate. But you just can't show up and block the roads. And what's interesting is that Ayn Rand, who I'm a fan of, I'm kind of like a student of a lot of her work. And in so many ways, the problems of this world could be solved if we just implemented some of her ideas. And Ayn Rand spoke specifically on this. I want to share this with you because I think it's good and it is aligned with what I'm saying. According to Ayn Rand, civil disobedience may be justifiable in some cases when and if an individual disobeys a law in order to bring an issue to court as a test case. Such an action involves respect for legality and a protest directed only at a particular law which the individual seeks an opportunity to prove it to be unjust. The same is true of the individuals when and if the risks involved are their own. But there is no justification in a civilized society for the kind of mass civil disobedience that involves the violation of the rights of others. Regardless of whether the demonstrator's goal is good or evil, the end does not justify the means. No one's rights can be secured by the violation of the rights of others. Mass disobedience is an assault on the concept of rights. It's a mob's defiance of the legality of such. So she's putting it in a lot more, should I say, philosophical language, but it's the same idea. We all have equal rights. We all have equal rights to our own life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. American citizens have that right. Immigrants have that right. Illegal immigrants, they all have a right to their own life and to make choices in their own life. This is in my opinion, we just need to make our legal immigration easier, faster, less expensive. So all of these undocumented immigrants are documented. And then we can do business in America, all above board, above the table. They'll pay taxes. And we don't have this sort of underground economy of people that aren't really here legally. They're hiding in the shadows and now fearful of being grabbed by an ICE agent, thrown into the back of a train car and shipped out to a prison in, El Salvador. I mean, so we're seeing that now and it's just wrong. So I think this is critical that we understand that we all have the same rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I do want to bring up a gentleman who I think is a terrific guy, and his name is Connor Boyack. Now, if you know me, I live here in Poway, the city and the country. Connor Boyack's mom, Marilee Boyack, used to serve on the Poway City Council. And since then, the family has all moved over back to Utah. Marilee Boyack, Connor's mom, actually was the person that appointed me to the Poway Budget Review Committee. So it's good family. But Connor has created an incredible organization called Libertas that lobbies for individual rights and freedom in the state of Utah. His movement is expanding. He's also written books about the Tuttle twins and American history and teaching these ideas of independence, of freedom, of individual rights, of free market economics to children and to teens, and providing it in a format that makes it easy for them to understand. But Connor Boyack had a great quote, and I just want to read it to you. This is a tweet or an X post, and he said, "The most revolutionary act in today's world isn't protesting in the streets. It's raising critical thinking kids who question political authority, who are skeptical of the media, and who operate independently and self-sufficiently." And I love that. I mean, I really did, because that just makes so much sense to me. I mean, it really does, because yeah, I was considering going, to some of these protests, but I thought, how much of a difference am I going to make there versus what I'm already doing here in my podcast, talking to you. So, I have my own platform to share this. And I think this will be a lot more effective if I wasn't just another body in the street. I think there's a lot of ways that we can influence change. So good on you, Connor. Critical thinking independently. Don't fall into the Republican, the MAGA, the Democrat line of thinking, because so many people are kind of auto-programmed to do that. Think for yourself. All right, let's move on.